Kevin Rabas. He was Poet Laureate of Kansas from 2017 to 2019, and he teaches at Emporia State University, where he leads the poetry and playwriting tracks and chairs the Department of English, Modern Languages, and Journalism. He has 11 books, including Lisa's Flying Electric Piano, a Kansas Notable Book and Nelson Poetry Book Award winner, All That Jazz, and Everyone Just Wants to Drum. He's the recipient of the Emporia State President's Award for Research and Creativity and is the winner of the Langston Hughes Award for Poetry and the Salina New Voice Award. Let's welcome Kevin Rabas.
Great, thank you for having me. And thanks to Phyllis and Sylvia and to all those that helped make this happen, and to Carl for making this work. So can everybody hear me okay? Maybe a thumbs up or something like that? Excellent, you can hear me. So I'm gonna read a pandemic poem first. This is called So We Stay Home. So we stay home, watch the rain, gray day, the lawn greening, the yellow crocus up and trumpeting, and nowhere to go, no one to meet for lunch, the bug in the background. And so I listen to Mingus, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, and pray for my parents in another town, and for jazz musicians out of work, home with their saxes and drums, rumbling somewhere like the Italian tenor singing from his window to an empty, empty street. And then, I haven't gotten to come back because of the pandemic, but Charlie Parker's 100th birthday would have been a few days ago on August 29th, even though he passed away at 34, born in 1920. But I have a bunch of poems about Charlie Parker, and this one is about me talking about Parker on a subway in New York City. Improv. The Thai guy in the subway station shows us the way. Which train? Says, from Kansas, what do you do? And I say, professor, poet. And he says, tell me one. And I'm quiet, shy, but do recite Bird's Horn, one of the only ones I know by heart, smoothing the words to him and the others in the subway car, our hands clamped to the silver pole, his head cocked my way. And he tells me this is Parker's town. And I say, we claim him too. Bop genius, born in KCK, cut his teeth in KC his fast jazz sound stretching to the coast like a cigarette ghost, like a long flat cirrus cloud, like an unending river coming from the mouth of his golden saxophone. Coltrane said he didn't hear double time till he heard Bird, didn't know half of the things you could do. And I wrote a whole small chapbook of poems about Charlie Parker, and that is one. I'll read a couple more that focus on Dean Benedetti. A third of all recordings of Charlie Parker were kind of bootleg recorded at Parker gigs, mainly in California, by a man named Dean Benedetti, and the poems explain that. Parker didn't mind, and so they're kind of a treasure trove. Birdwatcher. Dean Benedetti, alto sax in a dance band, went to gigs, recorded only the solos, only Bird live in LA, like a man in the woods with a mic capturing bird song. Coda. It's like it said Benedetti quit sax, sold drugs to keep following, listening hard for Bird. Recording Bird from the can. Benedetti arrives early at the dial date in Hollywood, and the management says, no mics, no chords. And so Benedetti tacks an out of order sign on one of the bathroom stalls, runs a discreet cord to the front table spot with a mic, and sits on the closed toilet seat, machine cradled on his lap, headphones clamped to his ears. And these are all, true stories. Here are a few about, I guess, politics. This one's called Tea Rally. It's a T and then some dashes to black out the rest of the name. If you look out at your crowd, your mouth to the mic, and they say they're beating someone, fists to his face, feet to his ribs, No, you've turned bad, bad, bad. Your voice gone wrong. Your soul split, spilt, spoiled, a mush. Look up. God may not spite you with a golden bolt, but I might. I just might. And then this one is about a year old. I wrote it for our campus Martin Luther King celebratory event. The Taunting of Nathan Phillips, Omaha Elder. I've seen the video of those white boys in red hats who surrounded the man with the drum. That smile they gave him, bully smile, smug, taunting him to come to blows. Teach me peace, Martin. Teach me peace, Dr. King. Help me to stand with my brothers and sisters of color when the red hats come, to silence the drum. And then this one is just a kind of a little smidget, a little chunk. Even the ant casts a shadow in the August sun. I have a new book out. It's a novella, and it's set in Kansas City. And Kansas City is actually kind of a character in it, not in a literal way, but metaphorically. And I'm going to read a small section from this. It's about a kissing game, and the young woman's name is Liz, and the young man's name is James. Okay, I'll close my eyes, she says, and let's see if you can kiss me gently enough that I don't know where you're kissing, Liz says with a grin. She's a little girl again. Okay, deal, I say. This could be fun. I kiss her lightly on the elbow. She doesn't shudder. Elbow, too easy. Try again. I bend, and as I do, I see the length of her body in full, taken in snapshots, in segments, in pieces, as Rene Magritte reveals in his surrealist paintings how the eye can only see so much at once. And so we reconstruct the body as one, once we have seen each piece, each shot. I settle on her ankle, give her a butterfly kiss, light as an eyelash wink. Better, ankle, she says. I rise slowly, her body an ocean to pass over, and I kiss her on the forehead. Way too easy, forehead, she says. No lines there, you might notice. No worries? Not many, she says. So there's an excerpt of the new book. It's only out a couple months now. And if you want a copy, I'll post a link in the chat function or hit me up in some way. This next one is called Not Done. We eat tilapia by the sea, that little black fish with a small pinch of salt to season the dish in Uganda, where this is a treat, a lot more than most ever eat. And we stop and the waiter says, not done. So we pick the bones, not done. So we eat the scales, the fins, not done. So we eat the eyes, warm and soft, the tail, till there is nothing left but white bones like hooks, like teeth, like the belly of a boat stripped open to the sun and sea, hollow, a mouth all the way open, hungry for nothing now. A friend of mine does service learning in Uganda, and he told me that story. I actually asked him to tell it 3 times so I could get it right. So here's a coronavirus poem. It's called Love in the Time of Coronavirus. Lisa and I watch a bad movie, and after we hold hands like 2 kids at the theater, like young lovers on her Casey apartment couch. We don't know if the bug will pass over our house like a death angel, and so we remind ourselves it's just us here in this room this evening, our young son gaming in his own room, his fingers clicking over the keys, his face bathed in blue computer light. No blood smeared over the doorway. It's just we 3 alone in this house, the wind outside like a monster, the streets all empty of cars. And then here's one from when my son was really little. My son talks with everything. He's 2. When he goes outside and touches the tomato plant, it flowers white. When he looks up at the starlings, they talk to him, and he talks back, a chatter, their own language. When a plane flies overhead, it wobbles its wings, Elliot waves. When he goes to the water, the turtles put up their heads and nod. Everything wants to know him. Everything calls, and he says, yes, 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 let's talk. And then I wanted to read a poem that's not one of my own, because it is September 11th, and my favorite haunting 9/11 poem is by Lucille Clifton, and it was written on Thursday the 13th of September 2001. It's called The Firemen. So this is by Lucille Clifton. The firemen ascend in a blaze of courage, rising like Jacob's ladder into the mouth of history, reaching through hell in order to find heaven, or whatever the River Jordan is called, in their heroic house. So there's one by Lucille Clifton about the day we are living. I'm gonna read another one. This one's a little bit longer, and it was written for donors and helpers at Emporia State where I teach. And so they essentially commissioned this poem as a thank you note to those who had given to the university. And so this one's a little bit longer, and I think I'll end with it. So here we go. This one's called Thank You. I'm gonna take a drink. Not all gifts are wrapped in a tight red bow. Some come lightly, like a 20 dropped into a tip cup, like a smile or a hand on a shoulder, or the words thank you, I appreciate you, I see you. When you look back at your college career and remember the bulb popping on, the lit wire of illumination, when you realized this is for me, listening as a professor talked and drew chalk across the blackboard, or when you heard aloud the first time the voice across centuries, or drew a bow across a cello and it sounded like angels, or in the field you lifted your first turtle from the water. The call came to you through the classroom and you spent a life giving that back, and we appreciate what you do. Like a Valentine or a love letter, you give expecting nothing. Your heart in a card, your time spent looping words you may say only once, but if you're lucky, that love catches hold and lasts, and your gifts go on and on and on. Okay, so that's what I've got. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, man. That was good.
Thanks.
Good stuff.
All right, let's give Kevin a hand. Show your hands up here. Yeah, that was a great reading. Really enjoyed that. Got a lot of good comments too that you can look at later. So we'll move on to our second reader. And before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for coming to the Riverfront reading. We know things are kind of crazy right now, so to take the time to listen to poets, we really truly appreciate that. Just before introducing Al, I want to announce our next readings. On October 9th at 8 o'clock, we're doing a special Riverfront reading with Mary Frances Wagner and Greg Field, so that should be a great one. And then at the end of the month, we're going to do our Phil Miller scholarship reading and make that a Zoom reading as well. And so more details will be coming out about that very quickly. So hope you can join that. And Mary Frances, do you want to talk about Writers Place readings?
Yes, we have a reading coming up September 18 with Virginia Brackett, Tracy Brimhall, and John Peterson. Three really talented writers. Virginia is up for a Thorpe Men. John is accomplished in multiple genres, and Tracy Brimhall is just a killer writer. So that will be a great reading. And then on September 25th, we will have an I-70 review release party. And we hope you'll all want to come, whether you read or not, and just enjoy. We have some wonderful, wonderful material in this issue. It's a killer. We featured Gary Soto and Ted Kuzer and Marjorie Stelmack, and we have wonderful, wonderful submissions from so many people. I mean, it's just killer. So come. We have lots of people who have signed up to read, some of them here tonight, and we hope that you'll want to join us that night and help us celebrate. It won't be like our usual party, but it'll at least be a way for us to get together. And then on October 2nd, Catherine Nuremberger, John Gallagher, Walter Bargan, and Rodney Gomez will be a reading, and that will be a killer reading too. So we'll hope you want to tune in for that one. And then on October 11th, we have our LGBT celebration. So please join us for those events. We have something going every Friday.
Thank you, Mary
Phyllis.
Frances. And it sounds like we might all die if we go to these killer readings, but thank you for laughing, Al. So, all right, so let me introduce Al.
Not killed, but rejuvenated from all the...
Okay, all right, thanks for the clarification. We have Al Ortolani reading now, and we all joined early, and I don't know, I'm sure many of you who are, if you're Facebook friends with Al, got to experience his 100 Days of Poems when COVID hit. And I was telling him how comforting that was in some ways. So hopefully, and Al said he's probably going to read some of those too. So anyway, Al's poetry has appeared in journals such as Rattle, Prairie Schooner, and New Letters. His most recent collection on the Chicopee Spur was released from the New York Quarterly Books in 2018. He's the manuscript editor for Woodley Press in Topeka, Kansas, and he has directed a memoir writing project for Vietnam vets across Kansas in association with the Library of Congress in Humanities, Kansas. His co-authored collection, Ghost Sign, was selected as a Kansas Notable Book in 2017. He is a 2019 recipient of the Rattle Chapbook Series Award for Hansel and Gretel Get the Word on the Street. So let's welcome Al, and a round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to thank Carl for putting all the work in on this tech stuff. I'm actually surprised I'm here. This is all kind of magical how this works. I've done Zoom before, but it's always just a mystery every time I get on. It's like, wow, something worked. And so here I am, and I appreciate everybody's attention. Phyllis, that was a nice intro. I'm going to do that. I'm going to read mostly poems from that 100 Days of COVID, which was, as we talked about earlier, was a difficult time for all of us. And as I wrote the poems, I found out that I was probably getting more out of them than anybody out there, because when I stopped writing after 100 days, I realized I have to keep doing this somehow. And so a few of these poems will come from afterwards. The first one is called First Chill. This one was just recently put on Facebook. First Chill. For the first time in weeks, you wear the Patagonia jacket, tighten the laces on your leather boots, walk the trail through familiar woods. When it is your time to go, and here you're referring to the final departure, there is a fondness for things you can touch, the beaten deer wallow, the tall grass rifled with thistle and goldenrod. There is melancholia, of course, gray clouds, saddle soap on old leather, the things of a poem. On the other hand, a hawk, wind in his wings, is gone behind the ridge the moment you turn your head. His tracks in the wind are as invisible as your breath. The intangible is what you cannot bear to lose. Here, where love drops leaves, where tomorrow rumbles in the west. A small boy in a hoodie keeps step with his grandfather. Both know the path through the trees. They speak easily, as if time itself is sheltered by the sky. Two truths about fishing. I do not fish, but I'm kind of taken by it. It always comes up in my poems. Two truths about fishing. A fisherman swathed in a poncho trolls the water's edge. Morning rain pocks the water, splatters off the gunnels, the ball cap, the fiberglass. The boat moves quietly, barely creasing the surface of the lake. Overhead, the limbs of oaks, usually stretched skyward, now appear hooded, bent like the fisherman who plumbs the depths. Part of the truth he fishes is as simple as a striking bass, the right bait in the right spot. The other truth is for quieter moments, that point beyond the hook, which drops deeper still. From the 100 Poems. Child on the Staircase. I pass you coming up the stairs as I am going down. Both of us are following the steps laid out in the old blueprints. Your bounding was once mine. My teetering will, sooner than you can guess, be yours. There is a rhythm in our movements, like the moon's phases, crossing heaven, waxing in full face, waning in thumbnail crescent. There is time to mourn, to celebrate both. Coming up and going down in the same stairwell, my hand on the newel post, the child's swinging free, brushing the other as we pass. That's Sonic with dandelions. I think about buying one of those long-beaked plague masks which are being advertised on Facebook. They stir a collective memory, a haunting like basement stairs, crawl spaces, spiders under pillows. I'd like to ride down 87th Street to Sonic on my motorcycle, order 2 hamburgers and a Diet Coke. I'd pay my ticket with cash without speaking, enjoy the car hop waiting for a voice to explain the cure. Hundreds of dandelions spot the uncut lawn, scented for the beak, cheap weeds for a girl's necklace, a boy's bouquet to a distracted mother. I once ate dandelion blossoms, deep fried like calamari, the yellow petals, 1,000 strong, cracked through the breading. Even with salt, we gagged at the perfume, the wild bitterness in our throats. A poem with my father in mind. All of our fathers had a smell about them, you know, an aftershave, a memory of smell that we associate that with them. Aquavelva. Sometimes we need to forgive our fathers before we can post their picture on Facebook. You know the photograph, the one with the black and white grain, the young man you barely remember, smiling up through the decades, flashing teeth, young eyes, smooth shaven. Maybe he is wearing a military uniform, maybe a dark topcoat. He is holding you by the hand in front of a White House or next to a 47 Oldsmobile. Snow covers the ground, both of you in transition, sucking the air, going somewhere that demanded a picture, a reason to brave the chill, the cold seats of the waiting car. Possibly it is Sunday and you are heading to grandmother's for chicken and noodles. That might explain the good coat, the church shoes. His hands are familiar, drenched in aquavelva, as quick with the belt as with the Band-Aid. You imagine he wants to appear stronger than his own father, who, as so many of his generation, died before giving their sons and daughters the nod. The relationship is complicated, and there is never enough time to sort it. Sometimes we must forgive our fathers for being the man in the photograph, for letting us fall, for letting us stand, for leaving us undone. Robin's egg blue. I know what you're thinking, that I've blown too much patchouli up my ass, that I've turned syrupy, a Pollyanna lug nut, that something special is going to happen today, not necessarily an international peace accord or the promised COVID vaccine, but something like the robin's egg in a blue favorite Crayola, or in a pair of worn denim jeans, favorites, the ones that help you feel the most in touch with who you could have been if you hadn't chugged the Kool-Aid, met the devil, eaten your cake, bought a subscription, bankrolled your tuition, fallen for an inflatable Barbie. Maybe you are a glass blower, a sous chef, a woman who hunts scrap metal, welds old wheels and lightning rods to angle iron, mixes wind chimes to sundials. Something that speaks to the color blue. I've been walking my dog a lot lately through all of this. He's my best buddy. And we've been encountering a lot of squirrels and a lot of crows. This is called Badass Crows. The crows on Darnell Street are upstarts. They traffic in pack rat plunder. One has a silver necklace in his beak. Another packs a .45 under his left wing. They see me coming from across the street and leap, more than fly, into the cover of branches. They begin to caw and alarm. I stand with my hands in my pockets, challenging nothing, a naturalist. Yet to them I am a man with an agenda. Two squirrels dash from the garden and begin circling the trunk. I cannot tell if they are my allies or the crow's toadies. Certainly, they must tell secrets to one another when I am gone. But for the moment, I am happy to stand in the shade. I offer birdseed for the silver, wear Kevlar in case the .45 is loaded. By this time, a real criminal would have put the pistol to my forehead, pushed the barrel into my skull. One crow dislodges an acorn, and it nearly pokes my eye out. My buddy Mike and I come back an hour later with toy Glocks, but the crows have murdered up down the road, harassing Wilson's cat with some really foul language. Wilson is beside himself. Do not swallow. This morning, I brushed my teeth with cortisone. I thought the tube said Colgate. Without my glasses, it was an honest mistake. We are Crest people, so I was surprised by the new brand in the travel tube. I suppose it could have been worse. Possibly, I could have failed to notice the distinct change in taste or the lack of spit foam. The small print read to avoid direct contact with the rectum, which gave me pause, since I am seldom so florid. If swallowed, I should call poison control immediately. There was even a phone number which I chose to ignore, since I felt the itch of this poem surfacing like a tick bite or a poison ivy rash. As a frame of reference for any who have been stung by a bee on a tooth, cortisone has a bland flavor, not as salty as Play-Doh, but more soluble than Crayola. It's a bit like styrofoam. My Aunt Cleedith, we used to go to her farm a lot when we were little kids, and it was like stepping back in time. And so I titled the poem after her farm, Cletus Farm. I saw this painting at an auction, an oil on canvas signed with an obscure swirl in the bottom right corner. It is of a small country road curving downhill into a small town. The road is dirt. The trees bend over it like village elders, shading a few houses, a general store with a gas pump, a long front porch with an awning, a public telephone. The colors of gold, which is not surprising, considering the fox canvas, the antique stretchers, probably pulled out of a closet or a barn, at best, the bedroom of a farmhouse. The room used by guests, relatives like the nephew home from the army. Before shipping out, he wakes early and needs to sit on the edge of the mattress before facing the breakfast table. The painting will sell for a few bucks. It will look best hanging at a distance from across the room, like history itself when painted with color gone quiet. We used to travel up from Pittsburgh to watch the Kansas City Athletics play, and it was more like seeing, a minor league team playing professionals. But it was fun. It was real baseball. This is called How the Holocaust Found Me at a Ballpark in Kansas. We had box seats, a gift from our neighbor who treated us to sandwiches from the Jewish delicatessen on Troost. All I knew was bologna, white bread. On the drive down Brooklyn Avenue, parking signs began to appear. The closer we got to the ballpark, the more expensive the spots. My father knew one old man 2 blocks from Municipal who was cheaper than the rest. We pulled our car into his front lawn under an ancient mulberry tree for 50 cents. Dad spoke to the owner as if they were old friends. They laughed about sweating bullets in the heat and how the A's couldn't beat themselves in a scrimmage. That Sunday, Joe Askew popped a homer over the left field wall into the $2 parking lot. Some guy leaning in the concession stand window had the ball in his pocket. Dad gave me a couple of bills to buy it from him. Later, a lady in the same concessions, a pinch-faced blonde in a gold apron, shortchanged me for a hot dog with mustard and relish. Dad counted my money and walked back up the concourse. I pointed her out to him, and he got my money back. The neighbor boy, a quiet kid from New Jersey who did not eat hot dogs from vendors, spooned a frozen malt. He told me a story about the numbers tattooed on his father's arm, the blue-black scorecard in the gap between his veins. It became sort of monotonous after a while, as you can tell from these, to just write about COVID. I thought that would be my original goal, but that didn't work because I swiftly grew tired of the same images. And so these poems I've just read, I've noticed as I was reading them, they do just diverge to whatever comes up that day. I have never written a poem about a giraffe. America, you are awash in noise like a city zoo during a summer storm. Your pavement is littered with branches, torn leaves, paper cups half filled with syrup and rainfall. A wand of cotton candy melts below a bench beside the lion pit. Peanut shells float like into drain grates, swept like canoes into sewers. A small girl and her mother huddle below an umbrella. The girl shivers with the cry of the peacock. It would be cliche to say the giraffe rises above our chaos. It is more to say the little girl watches the giraffe's liquid eyes in mute longing as the wind whips her mother's dress. Shit from Shinola. You all remember Shinola. You know, that cool stuff that we put on cars. I didn't know what it was as a kid, but I sure heard it a lot. As a teenager, mostly unnoticed between high school and college, I was fired from 2 jobs before finding my place in demolition, earning tuition by gutting an apartment building, old private housing splintered and crowbarred from a dozen rooms into a dark and dusty cavern. I measured days by the pile of 2x4s, the ripped angles of sheetrock, and the steel mesh torn from bathroom tile. Each evening I motorcycled into the strip points with a joint and watched the sun set from the top of a slag pile, the wind lifting the damp from my hair. The slanted sun colored the earth, golden stratifications, soil and sandstone shoveled up. The coal pit below, already in shadow, waited on the rain, the alkaline fill that could shine the bottom of a boat. It would be years before the new pit could sustain the life of fish. At work, we were joined by carpenters, old names in pinstriped overalls. We laughed at their slow gait, the way they slumped when standing. Our favorite, a Lloyd or an Elmer or a Hubert, framed in the first efficiency kitchen around his ladder. He had to saw it in 2 to angle it free between the studs. We laughed for the shine of it, wood gluing his lunchbox to the floor. He cussed a storm before sitting on a 100-pound keg of nails and unwrapping a hard-boiled egg. I'll do a couple more. They're all fairly short. Passover. The streets have been as quiet as clay pots in winter. Even rush hour is a plugged garden hose, a trickle of wrens, an escadrille of starlings. Time today for coffee at the window, buttered toast, a husband to pour his wife a second cup, for her to touch his shoulder in passing. By mid-morning, he leashes the dog and they walk the sidewalk to the park. Helicopters spin from the branches. Even in pandemic, sparrows splash their reflections in puddles. Neighbors embrace without touching. Doorways are painted with the blood of lambs. And for my last one, let's do I'll try this one. It's called Rubber Hoses, and it's about keeping your house afloat or running. Rubber hoses. The dryer has been overheating. Partway through a load of wet towels, it shuts down. The laundry room stinking with the scent of insulated wire. The neighbor agrees to let us bring our wet clothes to her house. We know the way into her basement almost as well as our own. She has an old dog, a blue-eyed husky mix. He's begun to lose control of his bladder. She leaves newspapers around the house for him to squat over. He'll have a place in the yard for his bones to rest. Much like dryers and washing machines, the dog will be nursed along until the end. Even big dogs are buried below the sweet gum. Their resting spot is remembered with a softening of the eyes, a sad turn of the mouth. Washing machines and clothes dryers get parted out, jumped, cussed while they're dollied to the curb. Unlike a dead dog, they are eventually picked up by a metal scavenger and sold for scrap. Even rubber hoses are worth a few cents somewhere. As a boy, I knew that if I brought home a young dog, heaven forbid a cat, there'd be hell to pay. Pet applications had parental channels. However, if I lugged home a young Kenmore clothes dryer, preferably electric, I'd be given a full bottle of Pepsi and a bowl of potato chips. This says something about us as a civilization, something about rendering unto Caesar our scrap appliances, and to the other rendering, we set a boneyard with tulips. Thank you. Thank you much.
Thanks, Al, and thanks, Kevin. It was a wonderful reading. Really, again, appreciate everybody coming to the reading. Kevin, Al, you guys are our second set of readers, and so thank you so much for what you had to offer. Really enjoyed yours, Kevin, and Al, your 100-day poems were really wonderful. So thank you so much.